They said Earth was gone, not destroyed by a weapon, not swallowed by a black hole, not even conquered, just ... forgotten, scrubbed from the star charts, erased from archives, and buried in silence by the same hands that once lifted her toward the stars. Captain Riva Solari had heard the whispers. The old legends called it the soft collapse, a quiet extinction, a bureaucratic genocide. Earth had cried out once, long ago, sending her final signal into the void. A simple distress ping. It was ignored. The galaxy moved on, but Riva never did. She'd been born in the orbit rings of Galveston 9, far from any blue planet, under a filtered sun. Her first breath had tasted of artificial oxygen and engine oil. Her childhood was steel walls and service. Routines, still, she dreamed of oceans, of sky, of wind that didn't come from vents. No one taught her these things. No one could have, yet they were there in her mind, like scars from another life. And now, the signal had returned, buried beneath the debris cloud of Sector X Delta. A centuries-old SOS beacon had pulsed once then, again matching the long-dead Terran format. Impossible, illegitimate, but real. And Captain Solari of the Helix-class Vigilant Spear turned her entire dreadnought toward it, defying orders and breaking 5 Exynos protocols to reach it first. She told her crew it was curiosity. She told herself it was duty. But deep down, she knew it was more. The debris field loomed like a graveyard, shattered hulls, frozen fuel trails, and twisted satellites spinning without purpose. Most were long-dead remnants of the Exodus era. Among them floated a small, metallic pod, weathered and frost-covered, its cryohatch sealed in archaic locks. Riva stared at it from the retrieval bay window. It looked like a coffin, but inside, a girl, alive, unconscious, human. Her body was unmodified. No exoskin, no cyber implants, no gene branding. Pale skin, tangled black hair, and a fragile heartbeat that pulsed weakly beneath the cryoglass. She couldn't have been older than 20. And on her wrist, in faint faded ink, were the words, "I remember Earth." Riva's chief medic, Corin, shook his head. Vitals are stable, but this pod's over 400 years old. She shouldn't even be alive. Nero, the ship's AI, added more frost to the room. Chronoresonance confirms anomaly. Subject's DNA shows 98.9% alignment with pre-Exodus Terran genome. Time displacement is consistent with late Earthfall. Riva swallowed. She couldn't stop staring at the girl's face. There was something haunting in the shape of her eyes. Something terribly familiar, though Riva was certain they had never met. "What do we call her?" Corin asked, checking readings. As if responding, the girl stirred, a twitch, a shallow inhale. Then her eyes opened bright silver with a hint of ocean blue. They locked on Riva's instantly, as if they'd been searching for her across time. She smiled, and then she whispered, voice dry but certain, "Earth ... I remember Earth." They moved her to the medical bay. The cryopod hissed as it powered down. Completely, steam curling off its surface like breath from a corpse. Inside, the girl lay still, but no longer unconscious. Her eyes, silver blue and unblinking, scanned everything. The ceiling lights, the meds. Riva's face. She didn't flinch. She didn't ask questions. She already knew where she was. "I'm Lyra," she said finally, her voice low, smooth, as if untouched by centuries. "You're on a Helix-class dreadnought, commanded by Captain Riva Solari, 1AI Nero, a crew of 87. You came for the signal, Reva stiffened. How do you know all that? Lyra blinked. Because you were supposed to, Corin. Muttered from the console. Vitals are perfect. Brain activities off the charts. But no signs of neural augments. No interface chips. No AI tethering. She's fully organic. Reva leaned closer, voice cautious. Do you know where you are? In orbit of a broken moon, once called Seleninan, Lyra replied without hesitation. This wreck field was a diversion tactic. The real source of the signal is me. Reva glanced at Nero's projection as it flickered onto the wall like a translucent spectre. Is this possible? The AI's voice buzzed in static. Chronoleak phenomena could explain short-term predictive behavior. But full foresight? Unlikely. Subject may possess quantum-entangled memory markers. English, Nero, Reva snapped. She's not guessing, Corin said quietly. She remembers things no one should. Reva stepped back, heart pounding. In her ribs, like a warning drum. She needed to think. To breathe. But Lyra's next words froze her cold. You dream of a hill, she said softly. And a boy laughing, chasing fireflies under a sky that isn't metal. Reva's blood drained. How do you know that? Lyra's eyes didn't waver. Because it's mine, too. The silence felt like pressure in the room too heavy for the recycled air to carry. Reva had never told anyone about the dream. It had haunted her since childhood. A memory that couldn't be hers because she'd never touched soil or sky. But Lyra had seen it. She wasn't lying. Something deep stirred in Reva's chest. Awe, terror, longing. Nero interrupted, cold and clinical. Captain, I advise quarantine. Subject poses a mimetic hazard. Her presence may cause cognitive drift among crew. She's not a weapon, Reva said sharply. I didn't say she was, Nero replied. But she is infectious. Lyra looked down at her own hands like she didn't belong in her body. I'm not supposed to still be here. I was put in that pod when the sky burned. When the last cities fell, Earth was collapsing. But someone wanted to remember it. Reva's voice cracked. You were launched as a message. Lyra nodded slowly. More than that, a vault. A living archive of sights, smells, sounds, feelings. The taste of rain. The way leaves moved in wind. The sound of real birds at dawn. I was trained to carry it. Then cryosent into silence. Until you found me. Corin stared, jaw slack. She's not just human. She's a memory capsule. But Reva wasn't convinced. Not yet. She stared at Lyra with growing intensity. Then tell me something no one else could know. Lyra hesitated. Not in fear, in sadness. Your mother died when you were 4 cycles old. Airlock fault on the Galveston ring. You never cried, but you kept her scarf. You still sleep with it in your locker. Reva felt the blood roar in her ears. How? I don't know, Lyra whispered. But when I saw you, the memory surfaced like it was mine, like I knew you. Nero chimed in sharply, red interface flickering. Danger. Subject is triggering shared memory echoes. Recommend isolation. No, Reva said, her voice steady now. She stays. She is destabilizing your cognitive barrier. I said, she stays. The AI fell silent. Reva turned back to Lyra, swallowing the fear rising in her throat. What are you? She whispered. Lyra's eyes glistened with something ancient. Sad, powerful. I'm what's left of Earth's soul, she said. And Reva believed her. The vigilant spear drifted through quiet space, anchored in the wreck field where Lyra had been found. But quiet didn't mean safe. 2 days passed. Lyra moved through the ship like she belonged, even though every step she took made the crew whisper. She didn't eat much, slept less, but she listened to everything. And when she touched the hull walls, the ship itself hummed like it remembered her. 2. Reva watched from the command deck, arms crossed tight. She's unsettling, Corin admitted behind her. Even the crew is having dreams now. Old Earth stuff. Places they've never been. It's spreading, Reva asked. Corin nodded. One of the junior techs described a thunderstorm in exact detail. She's never seen rain. Reva said nothing, but in her mind, she saw the hill again, the laughing boy. The stars above him falling like slow tears. Lyra had infected her too. Then Nero's voice broke the moment. Captain, unknown vessels approaching. No ID tags. No response to hails. Estimated arrival, 3 minutes. Reva's head snapped up. How many? 3. Stealth class. 0 emissions. Obsidian-formed hulls. Their design matches one pattern only. The Exarch Collective. Corin inhaled sharply. You're sure? They sterilized New Kyoto. Turned Europa Greenbelt to ash. They're here to erase. Battle stations. Reva barked, snapping the crew into motion. Lyra appeared behind her, silent as ever. Reva turned. Did you call them? Lyra shook her head. But they always follow memory. They want to control what the galaxy remembers. And I'm too much. They know you're awake. They always knew, Lyra whispered. They're afraid of what I carry. The first Exarch ship dropped out of fold space like a blade unsheathed. Then the second. Then the third. Black, angular, quiet. No lights, no insignias. But every dreadnought officer in the quadrant knew their shape. These weren't warships. They were deletion tools. Shields up, Reva shouted. Charge pulse cannons. They'll issue one demand, Lyra said. Return me, or burn. Right on cue, NERO's systems flashed with an incoming transmission. Not in words, but in frequencies. Pulses, cold, mathematical threat. They're giving us 60 seconds, Nero translated, to comply. Reva stared at the girl who shouldn't exist. The memory that had no place in this galaxy. I should go, Lyra said quietly. No, if I stay, they'll kill everyone. Reva's voice hardened. If we give you up, we're no better than the ones who buried Earth. Lyra touched the edge of the control panel. The screen lit up under her fingers. Then we don't run. We remember. The lights dimmed. The floor pulsed under their feet. Nero's voice cracked and glitched. Memory spike detected. Unauthorized neural broadcast. But Reva didn't move. She saw Lyra's eyes glow not with tech, but something more primal. Like an ancient sun waking up after a long night. The ship trembled, and suddenly, everyone on board felt it. It wasn't fear. It was memory, real, full-bodied, sensory overload. The smell of firewood, the rustle of autumn leaves, a mother humming in a small kitchen, a first kiss behind a school wall, the sound of waves crashing against cliffs, 1,000 fragments of earth flooding through them. Every crew member dropped. To their knees, weeping, shaking, overwhelmed by echoes they'd never lived, but now owned. Then Nero screamed. Warning, quantum resonance overload, Exarch interceptors, destabilizing Reva, forced herself up, clutching the console. On the main screen, the 3 Exarch ships wobbled, literally staggered, like drunk beasts. There, sleek, Emotionless AI cores were short-circuiting under the storm of human memory. They weren't built for this. They had no protocol for feeling. One vessel veered hard and collided with its twinnies, bloating in a bloom of black flame. The third tried to retreat, but it was too late. Reva leaned into the comms to all ships. Receiving this signal, she said through clenched teeth, "You tried to erase Earth. You failed." She glanced back at Lyra, still glowing like a living beacon. "Because Earth isn't gone, it's in us." The last Exarch ship folded out of space. Wounded and fleeing, silence returned. No one spoke for a long time. Then Lyra's glow dimmed. She slumped into Reva's arms, shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I had to share it, all of it." Reva held her close. "You didn't break us," she whispered back. "You reminded us why we fight." Lyra lay on the medbay table, silent and still. Her skin was pale, now drained. The light that once shimmered in her eyes had dimmed, but not gone. Reva sat beside her, arms resting on her knees. Jaw clenched so tightly it ached. She had watched a girl bring Exarch warships to their knees knot. With weapons, not with fleets, but with something far more dangerous, feeling. And now that girl looked barely alive. "She's not dying," Corin reassured, scanning vitals. "But she's depleted. Burned out most of her neural energy transmitting that whatever that was." "Memory," Reva whispered. She broadcast Earth's soul. Across the ship, the crew was still recovering. Some had collapsed in tears. Others just sat staring into space. Nero had rebooted twice, clearly shaken by what it called a neuroemotive overload. No one had ever seen an AI break before. Reva leaned close to Lyra's face. "You did something no species has ever done, Lyra. You made them feel." Lyra opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was barely audible. "I wasn't supposed to wake up this soon." Reva frowned. "What do you mean?" "I was built for preservation, not war. I was a backup drive. For Earth. My body is human, but inside there's something more. A lattice of quantum-locked memories, encoded emotion. The Council called it the Mnemosyne seed." "The what?" Lyra coughed, weak but steady. "The last scientists of Earth realized the galaxy wouldn't save them. So they made something that would remember them. Not facts, not data. Feeling, they believed. If someone could remember Earth with enough depth, maybe one day it could be reborn." Reva stared. "You're not just human. You're living history." Lyra nodded slowly. "When they placed me in the pod, I was only 5. They uploaded the Mnemosyne core into my mind, and then they erased the launch from every system they could find. Even Earth's own satellites were wiped clean." Reva exhaled. "So that no one could find you, unless they remembered to." Silence fell. Then Nero's voice crackled from the ceiling. "Captain, incoming signal." Reva's spine stiffened. "Another Exarch." "No, local wideband, civilian. From 3 neighboring sectors." They picked up Lyra's transmission. Reva rushed to the bridge. The screen lit with data, dozens of ships responding. Small vessels, trade freighters, smugglers, even a few derelict scouts. Each one was pinging with short encoded bursts. But not coordinates. Memories. One voice came through clearly old, cracked, trembling. "I saw it," said a man. "A red barn. White dog running through a wheat field. I haven't thought about that in 70 years. Another voice. "I was born in the Venus arcologies, but just now I saw snow. Real snow. My grandmother told me about it before she died." Reva swallowed hard. Lyra's signal hadn't just stunned the EXARCH, it had awakened the galaxy. Captain Nero said, "Softer now, if I may." I reviewed internal crew logs. It appears over 64% of your personnel are now exhibiting phantom Earth memories, visual, emotional, and tactile impressions. You mean dreams? I mean memories, Captain. Ones they shouldn't possess. Reva turned toward the viewport where stars swam in silence. Lyra infected us, or maybe unlocked something we always had. Back in the medbay, Lyra stood on trembling legs, one hand braced on the wall. She stared out at the galaxy map slowly rotating across the holodisplay. Earth isn't just a place, she said. It was a feeling, a frequency. When the world died, it wasn't lost. It was stored inside us. Reva walked up beside her. "You were the key. I was the spark," Lyra whispered. "But you're the fire." For a moment they stood in stillness. Then Reva asked the question that had burned inside her for days. "Why me?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Because you remembered first." They drifted near the edge of mapped space now where the stars thinned, and silence wrapped everything in velvet darkness. The vigilant spear had become more than a warship. It was a beacon. Since Lyra's pulse had swept the void, over 100 vessels had responded. More were coming. Not armies, not fleets, just ordinary people with fragments of something they didn't understand. A woman aboard a mining rig whispered about lavender fields. A child on a refugee craft described a blue whale without ever learning what one was. They weren't hallucinating. They were remembering. Lyra's signal had touched something buried, deep inside human DNA, an echo of home encoded in bone and breath. Earth had vanished from the maps, but not from the soul. Reva stood with her on the observation deck. No guards, no pressure suits, just open glass and open silence. "You said I was the fire," Reva said softly, "but it's you. You're the heart of all this." Lyra shook her head gently. Her skin was glowing again, only this time. It wasn't from memory. It was from release. "I can't hold it in anymore, Reva," she said. "The Nemesini core wasn't meant to be permanent. It was a seed. And now that it's bloomed in, others, you're burning out," Reva whispered. Lyra nodded, faster than expected. "But I'm not afraid." Reva reached out, holding her hand tightly. "We'll find a way to stabilize you. We'll offload the core, map it across servers, share the load." "No," Lyra said. "This was never about survival. It was about awakening." Her eyes welled with tears, but she smiled. Earth needed one voice. That's all. One voice to make the stars feel her again. Reva's voice cracked. "We need you, Lyra. You have me. Everyone does. I'm inside them now." And then she leaned in and pressed her forehead against Reva's in that moment. Reva saw everything: sunrise on a farmhouse porch, the smell of cinnamon, a protest march under black skies, the sound of wind through autumn trees, the moment of first love, the scream of childbirth, the final heartbeat of an old man, smiling in peace, and most of all the blue marble, fragile and burning with life, turning slowly beneath the stars. Earth. The memories poured into her, not data, not code, but truth, real and heavy and beautiful. Lyra pulled back, breath shallow now. "It's yours," she said. "You'll carry it forward, and they'll carry it from you." Reva couldn't speak, could only hold her as her light grew brighter. Then Lyra walked into the core chamber. The crew gathered in silence, eyes wide, hearts thundering. No one stopped her. Not even Nero, who only said softly, "Goodbye, Lyra." She smiled and stepped into the memory field. Her body lifted slightly, feet no longer touching the deck. Her hair drifted like it was underwater. Light spilled from her chest, her eyes, her hands shimmering green and gold. The moment her body dissolved, the ship glowed. Then the stars themselves seemed to shimmer. A wave radiated outward, subtle but undeniable, a final echo, the last transmission, and every human who felt it, every soul with even a drop of Terran blood, remembered, not in words, but in feeling. That night, Reva returned to the command deck. Nero projected a message across all systems. This ship no longer sails for war, it sails for remembrance. Reva recorded a message and sent it into every relay, every beacon, every crack of the void. Her voice was calm, but behind it was thunder. To those who would erase us, you failed. Earth was not your victim, it was our origin. You may silence our songs, dismantle our cities, burn our bones, but you cannot delete what we feel. We are the sum of our sorrows, the heat of our joys, the echo of all we've lost, and all we refuse to forget. We are human, and Earth lives in us. Somewhere in the dark corners of the galaxy, an Exarch fleet paused and listened in her quarters. Reva opened her locker. Inside was a faded scarf. She hadn't touched it in years. Now she brought it to her face and wept, not from grief, but because she remembered.